Hello and welcome back. So in the previous video, we have created the API gateway that we will use. And in this video, we'll use that API gateway and publish the API that we've created in the previous video, right? So we have the sample API that we've created using the Logic app to translate any text. And now we also have the API gateway, right? So now let's go to the real example where we would actually publish the API via the API gateway. And we'll also see the difference between the APIs when it's exposed via the API management gateway or without the API gateway, right? So let's go ahead and hop onto the Azure portal, right? So we are on the Azure portal now, and this is the API gateway that we have exposed via the API management tool. And if you recollect, we have also saved the endpoint of the API that we have created, right? So this is the endpoint that was created for us when we created the API using the Logic app. And let's just to briefly revise what we've done with this API. Let's go to the Postman, right? And this is the actual endpoint that was created by the Logic app, right? And as you can see, there are a lot of details, right? There's a signature, there are versions and a lot of details, right? And just looking at this URL, we can see that this is not the most friendly API URL, right? But this is what's been created for us by the Logic app, right? So let's go ahead, and this is the sample text in some other language, right? So let's go ahead and call this API, and there we go. It has translated this text in English for us, right? So we are going to use the same API, the same API endpoint, but now we are going to publish this via the API management tool, right? So let's copy this and let's go to the Azure portal and let's click on these APIs. When you click on these APIs, it shows you any APIs that has been already published, right? So there's one sample API, the Eco API, right? So it's a sample API published for us to review if we need any help or if we need to see any settings in that sample API, right? So we need to add a new API here. As you can see, there are multiple options. It's giving us few options here, right? So obviously you can start as a blank API, right? Or there is this standard called Open API. So if you want to publish an API as an open API, you can use it. You can use this option, right? And then there are WADL, WSDL. This is the traditional SOAP web service, right? And then it also allows you to, use one of your existing Logic apps, right? To select the Logic app and directly publish the Logic app as an API via this portal, right? And then there is something called app services. So you can actually host your existing APIs using the Azure app service. You can also choose it from there. And you can also create function app as an API that, if you recollect, we've done one of the sample APIs in the function app as well. So it also allows you to select APIs from your function app, right? But for the purpose of this demo, let's go ahead and start with a blank API, right? Because we already have the endpoint, we can start with the blank API. So I'm creating this blank API. The display name, I want it to be language API, right? And then that's going to be the name as well. The web service, it's going to be, let's paste the URL that we currently have. So I'm pasting that URL here. And what's the API URL suffix that we want, right? So here, whatever we add in the suffix would be added after this URL dynamically, right? So this is going to be the base URL. So here in the suffix, I'm just going to give it a name of API, right? So this is going to be the base URL to call this language API once we publish this, right? And let's go ahead and click on create. Okay, so we have the language API, right? Now we need to add the operations in this API, right? Operations are basically the get and post operations that we have at the API level, right? So we only have one post operation, right? Let's go ahead and add a new operation, and the name I'm going to give it translate text. Okay, the URL, it's going to be a post URL, right? And there's nothing at the end. We have already added the entire URL in the API, right? So we've added the language API, and we've just added the post method to that, right? We're naming this method as translate text, right? So whoever is consuming this API, they should also, it should be user friendly. So whoever is using this documentation from the developer portal, they should also know what this method is going to do, right? So this is going to translate the text, right? So let's go ahead and add translate text to that, and the method is going to be post method, right? And if your API needs anything at the end of the URL, you can use this space to define that, right? Our API is an entire endpoint URL, so it doesn't need anything added at the end of the endpoint, right? So we'll leave it empty. We'll just leave the slash at the end, right? This description box, you can use this to describe what exactly your API method will do, right? So this API will translate any language text into English language. So a developer, whenever they read this documentation, they also know exactly what this API method is going to do. In the template, we're not defining any template for now, and there is no query parameter for us to define. Our API only needs the request body. So let's go to the request and let's define what's the, let me remove this. Let's start from the beginning, right? So in the request, you need to define exactly what type of request or a sample request that this API can accept, right? So you can use this description box to define and let the developers know exactly what they can pass here, right? In the content type, we know that we need the application JSON content, right? Let's select application JSON and let's copy the sample request here. So whenever developers are using this, they would also get the sample request, right? Let's save this. Okay, so we've just defined the post method that would translate the text. Now, before we publish this, let's go ahead and test this, right? So this utility allows you to test your own APIs before handing it over to the developer via the portal, right? Let's go to test. And as you can see, all of the defaults that we've configured in the design section are already carried forward for you, right? So the content type is application JSON. The request body has been carried over here for you, right? And all of the other details are there. If you want, you can select products, but for the test purpose, we don't need to. Let's hit on send and let's see what happens, right? So there we go, 200. Okay, that means it has successfully received the response back. Let's scroll down and see the response. So this was the request that we have passed, and here is the response that we received. And in the response body, we should have an English translation, which is here, right? So we've just tested our API. We've just tested our API post method, and we've just published the language API. And if we now go back to the developer portal, developers would also have access to these APIs. Let's go to the developer portal and let's click on APIs. And there we go. So there was the first API, the sample API. And then this is the language API that we've just published, right? Let's click on the language API, and it has post operation, post translate text, right? Let's select that. And this is the request that a developer can use, right? So as you can see, the sample has been created. The you know we'll in the next video we'll also see how developers can use this developer portal to actually call the API, and we'll also try this from the Postman in the coming video. So in the previous video, we've created the sample API, and we also created the API gateway. And in this video, we've published the sample API using the API gateway, right? In the upcoming video, let's go ahead and test this. Stay tuned. See you in the next one.